With a mission to deliver fiscally responsible, highly dependable services to the citizens of our community and the region with integrity and professionalism, this is the City of Albany Commission Meeting with Mayor Bo Duro, Mayor Pro Tem John Howard, Ward 1, Matt Fuller, Ward 2, BJ Fletcher, Ward 3, Chad Warbington, Ward 4, Bob Langstaff Jr., Ward 5, Demetrius Young, Ward 6, City Manager Sharon Subadale, City Clerk Sonia Talbot, and City Attorney Nathan Davis. This is the City of Albany Commission Meeting.
Good evening, and welcome to the July 2020 regular meeting of the Albany City Commission. The first item on the agenda will be the invocation. We have Reverend John Schroeder of Greenbrier Church. I want to welcome Reverend Schroeder. If we could, I guess everyone in the auditorium could stand, and we'll have the invocation, and then we'll follow that up with the pledge. Good evening.
I'll be able to pray now? Just want to make sure. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, let's pray together. Father, we gather here because we believe that we are called together into a work that we cannot yet know the fullness of. Still, we trust the voice of the one who has called us. And so we offer to you, oh God, these things, our dreams, our hopes, our plans, our visions. We ask that you would shape them as you will. Our moments and our gifts, may they be invested towards bright, eternal ends. Richly bless the work before us, Father. Shepherd us well, lest we grow enamored by our own accomplishments or entrenched in our old habits. Let us instead listen for your voice. Our hearts are ever open to the quiet beckonings of your Spirit. And this we endeavor. Let us in true humility and poverty of spirit remain ready, ever ready to move at the impulse of your love and paths of your design. You alone, O God, by your gracious and life-giving Spirit, have power to knit our imperfect hearts, our weaknesses, and our strengths, our stories, and our gifts to one another. Unite your people and multiply our meager offerings, O Lord, that all of it might resound to your glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
The next item will be approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. Have the commissioners had an opportunity to review those minutes? Any comments? There being none, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting?
Mayor.
Don't you think I know that? Okay.
If Mr. Hicks will take the roll call.
Ward 1.
Yeah.
Ward 2.
Here.
Ward 3.
Here.
Ward 4.
Yes, I'm here.
Ward 5. Ward 5. Ward 6.
Here.
Mayor.
Here. Ward 5 is here.
Mr. Hicks, roll call is not on this, but the mayor is here. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting?
Yeah, I also move. Second.
Any discussion? There being none, we'll call the roll. Mayor Pro Tem. Commissioner Fuller.
Yes.
Commissioner Fletcher.
Yes.
Commissioner Warbington.
Yes.
Commissioner Langstaff.
Yes.
Commissioner Young.
Yes, sir.
Mayor votes yes. And the next item on the agenda will be a report of the Committee of the Whole, a discussion as to the ongoing renovations of the Pace Building. There decision needs to be made as to whether or not we will suspend construction and bid the contract out, have a architect design and put it out for bid, or will the city proceed with as construction manager for the project? And is Ms. Fields, Mr. Gray, and or Mr. SCollier going to speak to this issue?
Hello, Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mr. SCollier.
Good evening. Good evening to everybody, Commission, Mayor. Mayor, we actually just, our input in it, we've actually had the assessment done on the life safety issues, the ADA compliance issues, and I'm sure you've seen it by now. We sent the report out yesterday. There are none. We're good. There was 2 minor issues, separating the water cooler, removing the door closers off the doors. So it's our recommendation, obviously, that we keep going as we're going. It's up to the commission to decide from there.
Thank you, Mr. SCollier. Any discussion? Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr. Collier.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. How you doing?
Good evening, sir. I'm doing good.
Okay. It's on the agenda. At what point, how far this work is being, before it be complete?
Okay. I know we were constructing walls. I'll let Mr. Gray, he's on now. He can tell you exactly where we are with construction. Mr. Gray?
Mr. Gray, you on the line?
May have to unmute down.
Okay, so apparently he's having technical difficulties. I know we finished the plumbing, the rough end of the plumbing, and we were actually doing the construction of building the walls in the suite.
Mayor, can I do a follow-up question?
Yes,
sir. Mr. Collier.
Yes, sir.
You said, but you can't give us a ballpark figure that what has been self-performed, can you?
Ask that again, Mayor Pro Tem.
You couldn't give us a amount that has been completed as of yet, other than what you say, the wall.
Yeah, well, you know, we actually performed the demolition. So we had torn everything out last time we talked. The plumbers were in there. They had to cut the floor to lay out the plumbing for the new restroom and lavatories. And we've been constructing the actual framing for the walls, because we are reconfiguring the entire building. It's going to be different than it was before. Okay. So a percentage of that, I would have to say they're probably, again, without Mr. Gray being here, the absence of knowing exactly where they are up the wall, I didn't go across today. I would think we're probably 30-something% into it.
So if it was to be rebid, so the individuals the contractors that have, is it the 3 contractors that are doing some work over there as of now?
Right now, there's only one contractor that'll be actually the plumbers finishing up. That's the first one. Second one would be the company Weatherall that's doing the building of the walls. But I do want to point out to you, I mean, I know that has been concern voiced that we are not taking care of local vendors. All except one of these trades are from right here in Albany. So if you stop this work, those trades have actually gone out, got their bond and their insurance, and are ready to go to work. They just need the wall people to get out of their way.
Okay.
So these are local subcontractors.
Okay. And they have signed the memorandum of understanding to do the work, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Nathan, can I ask you a legal question?
Sure.
If we were to rebid this out, would that put us in jeopardy of being sued or giving us a bad name or bad image or what?
Well, there might be an image issue. Stephen, have we guaranteed anybody a contract? Have we signed a contract with them?
They signed them, sir.
Is there any out clause in it?
I would have to review the contracts. Ms. Fields having technical difficulties to get on. But I do, it is my understanding that we've contracted with each of these trades. Because some of them were really pushed and challenged to supply the abundant information to us and the insurance, and they've all gotten it from my last report.
Mayor Pro Tem, depending on what the contract says, there's a potential claim for lost profits. That's a hard object to prove, but that would be the exposure. Thank you.
So let me understand, Mayor Pro Tem, I need clarification here. You want to rebid it. We actually bid it last time. So are you wanting to rebid it in a different way? Or are you saying that you want to know if we can drop back and bid it with the general contractor, GC? Because we've already bid it.
I know you've already bid it, but I'm just before this meeting is adjourned, there may be some votes to rebid the whole project back out.
Yes, sir. I just wanted clarification, not trying to be combative at all.
I understand. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Commissioner Fuller, any questions or comments?
Yes, sir. I just comment. I would say, these trades, especially that have already started, I don't know how we would certainly be liable for full payment. I would think if a trade has already begun work, and like you're talking about the plumbers, they will, part of their job is doing the rough end they're doing now, and then they would have to come back and do the trim out and do the rest of it further down the road. So, so I don't know how that would work if we tried to, rebid that and change a contract we already have with these vendors and these subcontractors that have started work. So that's all. Thank you.
Commissioner Fletcher?
Yes, sir. I'll tell you, I called LRA and they went over there because I know one of the commissioners, I believe it was you, Mayor, that was talking about no windows in there. And I sort of explained the best I could how this looked like it was going to be set up. And Mr. Barrow said that they would be willing to do what windows we wanted at cost, which would be $2,980 per window. That's going brick to brick. And I thought that might help that, he's local, and I would like to, I would think that it would upset people if they got pulled in the middle of a job, because jobs are scarce right now. Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Warburton?
Yeah, for me, I guess first, I'm getting some echo. First, I appreciate staff. There were a lot of requests, a lot of things thrown at them, and I really appreciate kind of regrouping and coming back with changes and new options. I guess for me, where I'm going to fall out on this is I really believe we need to stop work, kind of stop where we're at. Obviously, as Commissioner Fuller said, the ones that have started or in the middle, maybe let them finish out. But I'm going to advocate really for maybe a 4-week delay to really regroup, maybe form a committee. I don't know if any of the commissioners are willing to serve on that committee. And really, if the city is going to be their own contractor, I would almost like to have whoever that person is, if it's Mr. Gray or Mr. Swilly, if they're our contractor, is honestly have them come present to us in a month as a contractor would, that we would be selecting to essentially present to us what the plan is, what the budget is, what the amount of money is, and almost get approval from us for the overall budget. And then obviously within that, all these individual trades, they would have the authority to, just like a contractor, to go find their trades, obviously within the city's protocol and our policy of that. But anyway, so I believe we're at a point, there's so many options, even with Commissioner Fletcher throwing windows out now, roof, and then we've got this state fire marshal that just got his report yesterday, 39-page document that I don't know if any of us even had time to read that. There's just a lot of information out there, and so that's going to be my, I guess, my motion or my what I'm going to push for is really just to kind of stop where we're at and regroup and come back with what the overall plan is for us to approve as a commission.
Commissioner Dura is muted. Ward 5 doesn't have any comments. So if the mayor is calling on me.
Yes, sir. You hear me now?
No comments.
You hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Young?
No comments.
Yes, sir. Mr. Collier, you all sent out the report from the company that was, I guess, to oversee some of the challenges that Mr. Maskey had to the ongoing construction. First of all, tell me how many issues did Mr. Maskey point out in total?
Well, sir, I can't remember. Certainly, we had a meeting with him. I'm thinking it was probably 10 or so.
About 10 or so issues that would be quote unquote violations. And
yes.
Can you tell me how many actual violations or things that the company found out were actually, I guess, legitimate or valid?
Only two.
Only two.
As far as ADA and life safety. And the life safety from the summary said remove the closer off of a door rather than it self-closing. And the other one was to separate the water coolers. So that had actually been looked at early on. As you've seen before, there are water coolers that has the normal height, and then there's one for ADA accessibility, and they're built together. One's on the side of the other. He said you would be better off to just put in two different level water coolers. So those were the only.
So out of all of the, I guess, things that were, I guess, said to be just wrong and out of order and out of code, only two things were found to be, I guess, valid in terms of what was said. And then those seem like minor things that you can go back and readily fix, right?
Absolutely, sir. If you recall in the work session, we had that conversation. I said it came down to inches and a door swing, whether it's right or left, and that's about what it come back to do. The gentleman is the retired fire marshal for the state who's running his own company now, and he said he found no real challenges. Everything was easily fixable.
Okay. So I guess in terms of using, I guess, whatever city employees, resources to do this construction, I guess, can it be said you all were pretty much on schedule other than, just those few minor things and basically getting it right?
Absolutely. You are correct, sir. And the revision has already been submitted for those two items that the gentleman from the consulting company pointed out.
Okay. And how much was the consulting company costing?
Cost us $2,100, sir.
Okay. All right. For somebody to come back and tell us that pretty much everything was correct other than two minor things.
Yes, sir.
The door swing and some water fountains.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. No more questions, Mayor. Thank you.
Mayor, may I go out of turn? So Commissioner Young and Mr. Curry, correct me if I'm wrong. Most of Mr. Matsky's issues were corrected on the drawings before we engaged the consultant. So the consultant only saw all the changes at Mr. Matsky. He didn't look at Mr. Matsky's issues. The issues were already revised by the architect, that the architect had already changed all that. So what the fire marshal found were 2 additional items on top of what Mr. Matsky and the architect, and I guess there was a big Zoom meeting that the city and everybody had. So it wasn't that he agreed with 2 of 20 or 2 of 12. It was 2 additional items that the fire marshal found, and he didn't change anything that either Mr. Matsky or the Macon firm, whatever they resolved the week or 2 leading up to the. So it's not quite. And Mr. Carr, correct me if I'm wrong. Is that correct in what I'm saying?
There was certainly Mr. Matsky first took a look at the first set of drawings and plans. After that meeting, SP Designs, the architect of record, did submit a second set of drawings. And I see Mr. Gray's on here now. But as I recall, in that second set of drawings, there were minor changes. Mr. Gray, is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
So the second drawing didn't correct a whole lot of what Mr. Matsky had said that he thought were life safety issues. Some of it was preference. A lot of it was preference.
Mr. Mayor, this is Carl from Russell. I'm on the line.
Thank you, Ms. Russell. We'll hold on. It's anything else?
Well, so I'm just going to put one example out there. So going out the back door are metal steps that go down. Mr. Matsky highlighted that was not a proper landing, that having us, that's a pretty big ticket item to go tear off the metal landing. And so the new set of drawings had the new landing. I remember looking at one of the drawings and seeing that the landing was bigger, more new step. Somebody may say that's minor. Somebody may say that's major. But the fact is that one particular item was corrected before it went to the state fire marshal. And so, and I'm not trying to take up for Mr. Matsky at all. I'm just trying to say this is an evolving process. Mr. Matsky highlighted some things. The Macon firm highlighted some things. And we sent the final drawing to the state fire marshal. And whatever, kind of like making sausage, whatever happened between all the meetings, now the state fire marshal says, oh, there's 2 more items and we're good, essentially. That was my interpretation of what happened.
Mayor, may I say something for clarification here?
Yes, sir.
I think it's important to point out he's no longer a fire marshal, because when I called the state fire marshal's office, they were quick to point out that the decision and the approval lies with the local jurisdiction and they had no right to get involved. So Mr. Garris is retired. He's a year removed from being fire marshal, and I need to make sure that's in the minutes. He runs a private company now. Well-credentialed, knows what to look for. And he pointed out in the conversation with me, that person is Carlton Russell. And Mr. Russell has latitude as to what he wants to waive in certain circumstances. I'll have to let Mr. Russell speak to that. But he says that the state fire marshal's office was clear when I called him. We have no right to come down there and get involved in this, and we will not. You need to find a consultant.
Okay. So the gentleman that generated the report, he was paid by who?
It's paid by us, the city of Albany.
Okay.
It was $200 an hour. It was 10.5 hours, $2,100.
Okay. All right.
Mayor, can I follow up? I guess.
Well, I hadn't got my turn yet, but go ahead, Commissioner Young.
Well, because Commissioner Warburton had a little bit of a rebuttal to what I was getting at, because I just wanted understood that we went through all that process, and I respect Mr. Matsky and his contribution to that, but we still have to understand that Mr. Maskey was one of the people who was, I think, not considered for the bid. So I don't want us to get into a situation where, you know, if a certain contractor, certain architect, whoever has an interest does not get the bid, then they're able to come back and kind of nitpick a process that had been already completed in terms of selection, in terms of figuring out the project, and then we want to do a whole full stop on the project and let's redo it all over again. You know, I think sometimes we, you know, if it's been not even by those of us who weren't on the board at the time, if it has been deemed or voted on that we're going to go in this particular way, and that particular way is not in violation of any codes or any safety standards, which it sounds like, then we ought to keep on down that path and not try to just upset the whole apple cart because somebody else has a disagreement that seems to be, based on the consultant, seems to be, you know, kind of minor or some superficial concerns. Okay.
Welcome. Chris Young. Okay. Commissioner Young haven't made that statement. I think Mr. Maskey's primary concern was that the job was not bid out. So he didn't really have a chance to bid on but if Mr. Collier can correct me if I don't think it'd be fair to say that he was passed over for the job, because I think that was his primary complaint. It was not offered for bid, but Mr. Collier can correct me if I'm wrong.
You are correct, Mayor. We didn't offer it for bid. The policy allows us to hire professional services. We were in a meeting assessing the building. The SP Design had an architect readily available to design it. I made that recommendation to Ms. Sudan, as I've already said. She told me to go for it. We hired him.
Okay. My concern is that this project was started after a new commission was sworn in. And I think it should have been sort of recalibrated before we proceeded. These contracts with the subs, when were they signed, Mr. Collier?
I think Ms. Fields is on now. Ms. Fields, are you there? Ms. Fields?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
All right. The mayor asked a question about the contracts.
All contracts, all of them were signed, well, at least the majority of them were signed during the month of June.
But before Mr. Maskey expressed these concerns?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I wanted to get that, but work has not been suspended since this issue came before the commission earlier this month, has it?
No, sir.
It has not.
Okay. All right. We'll go around one more time. I think I went out of order. Commissioner Warmington wanted to say something, but I'd rather we just, from now on, let you ask the question a second go round. If we could pass over Mayor Pro Tem. I know he had a question from Mr. Gray. Commissioner Fuller, you got any further questions, comments?
No further questions.
Commissioner Fuller?
No further questions.
Commissioner Warmington?
You skipped Mr. Fletcher.
Commissioner Fletcher?
No questions.
I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay. Commissioner Warmington?
No, nothing further.
Commissioner Langstaff?
Nothing further.
Commissioner Young?
Yes, I just will, I guess, kind of clarify the point that you were making.
Yes, sir.
I thought I remembered Mr. Maskey being concerned that there were other architects that could have been selected within the city. And I was just trying to point out that he is an architect, so he did have some interest in, this particular project. And I think that, also needs to be known in terms of when we kind of legitimize, critiques that come from, other companies or professionals who may be unhappy that they were not selected for by whatever process. I just wanted to put that on the record.
At the end of a trial, the judge usually tells the jury to evaluate the witnesses based on their bias and interest. And I mean, I don't doubt, the fact that Mr. Maskey had some heartburn about this. And I just wanted to, it was my understanding that, as Mr. Collier has substantiated, his primary concern was that he didn't have an opportunity to well, I shouldn't say primary concern, but probably motivating factor was that he hadn't have an opportunity to bid on the project. Mayor Pro Tem, you had a question for Mr. Gray, and I think we got him on the call now.
Mr. Gray.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. How you do?
I'm doing fine, sir. Yourself?
All right. I think earlier Mr. Collier gave me a tentative number. If this decide to be rebidded out, do you know how far we in with it, and what would be the cost?
How far we are into it, sir?
Right.
We are on schedule as far as our construction schedule. As far as the cost, all items we have done thus far, we've tried to work within the budget we've been allotted, which is $1 million. I understand that we are evaluating some potential changes. Once those changes are decided upon, obviously we will come back with any associated costs, but I am still working with the original budget.
Okay. And it will come in under $1 million, right?
As far as I know at this point, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. With that, would anybody like to make a motion either to continue with renovations or to temporarily suspend construction?
Yep, Mayor. I would like to make a motion that we put a pause on the work outside of the one or two that are currently on site or what have you, to allow them to finish. But basically pause the work for 4 weeks and to form a subcommittee to work with staff and come back to us in a month with options, a budget, maybe things like the roof that we decided not to do. Maybe this committee says, hey, we really ought to do the roof and it's going to cost X amount. As Mr. Gray just indicated, there's some new items that are on the table that may change that $1 million budget. But a 4-week delay and to have the future committee of whoever, whatever that is, to come back to us in a meeting in August.
Is there a second? I'll second the motion for discussion.
You're on mute.
I'll second the motion for discussion. Mayor Pro Tem?
Have no further comment.
Commissioner Fuller?
Are we voting or are we looking for comments?
We're commenting on the motion to suspend construction. And
okay.
Did you get the
I don't want to suspend construction for 4 weeks. The part about the committee, I think that's a good idea. I'm happy to serve on the committee and report back to the commission at every meeting or how often the commission would like to hear a report. And if there are any other commissioners that would be willing to serve on the committee with me, that'd be great. But I just feel like storm season is here. I think we've got our bids. If everybody has seen the bids, I know there might be some, I think that's something we can dig into as we go over these next couple of weeks is, are there any additional things that need to be done or something that wants to be done? I know Commissioner Fletcher mentioned the windows. If that's something, that the commission and staff feels good about that we ought to do, that's something we could consider. But at this point, I would not want to hold up for 4 weeks, but I think the deal about a committee being formed is a good idea, and I'm happy to serve on that.
Thank you. Commissioner Fletcher?
I don't want to stop for 4 weeks, so my vote would be no.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Warburton?
Yeah, I would be willing to make a substitute motion for 2 weeks. I appreciate Mr. Fuller willing to be on the committee. If he feels like that between him and staff, they can come back in 2 weeks, I'd be fine with 2 weeks. So I don't know if it's time for a substitute motion, but I would make that if needed. And I appreciate Mr. Fuller willing to serve from our commission.
Is there a second to the substitute motion?
Second. Ward
Okay.
5 seconds.
Okay. Langstaff, your discussion?
And I'm fine with the 2 weeks that Chad Worthington proposed.
Okay.
That's all I've got.
The second. Okay. Commissioner Young?
So are we commenting on the first motion or the second motion? Yep.
Nathan, the second motion, the substitute motion trumps the.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. So that's what it would be, Commissioner Young. The substitute motion.
Okay, without going back through this whole rebidding process, we just do 2 weeks forming the committee. Okay, I mean, I can agree with that. I can agree with that.
Okay.
If that's what's on the table now, let me make sure I understand. Commissioner Worthington's second or substitute motion. He wants to suspend 2 weeks, and then form the committee.
No, I would assume the committee would be formed immediately, like tomorrow. 2 weeks would be, if there's 1 or 2 trades in the building, maybe let them finish during this 2 weeks, but everybody else is kind of put on hold, just kind of hold where you're at. Your contract's not terminated. It's not ended. It's just kind of like, let's just kind of hold and let this committee report back to us within 2 weeks. Well, really before we start back, it would come back to our commission.
Okay. Yeah. I guess I can go with that with the caveat that, I know we got contractors on this board. We got engineers on this board. I'm not either one of those, but I do think there is something to be said that we need to, I guess, necessarily trust the folks who we employ. And we came to all of this based on kind of somebody's head being on fire, that things were being done that were not up to code. We had we had the consultant come in and tell us that wasn't exactly correct. And now we're all the way trying to stop construction. We're trying to form a committee, and we're doing a whole nother different thing based on, again, some complaints that weren't as large as were made out to be from the last meeting. And I get the process. I get the no bid. We shouldn't be getting into doing no bids and things like that. And I know folks get, like the mayor said, get heartburn when they don't get selected. And especially I also agree about having, taking our tax dollars and taking them out of town. But, again, when we started kind of rehashing decisions that were made based on things that, doesn't necessarily rise to the level of being out of the code, out of the standard, then, we start getting in the weeds. This commission board is not a board of contractors. It's the board of city commission, and we need to let the contractors, whether those folks fall up under city employees, if they're able to do that, then we should let them do their work, and I think not always kind of try to be looking over their shoulder on every little thing. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I would point out, as I recall, Mr. Maskey had emphasized that this is supposed to be a medical clinic, and there was not provision made for support, the electrical support for medical equipment and some things like that. Also, a concern I have about, we've talked about these windows, that we don't need to get in a situation where we're trying to bring this thing under $1 million when it's more than $1 million project, because 2 or 3 years, if we have employees who are dissatisfied with the working conditions, or we have to change out this roof, we need to do it. If we're going to do it, it needs to be done right. We don't need to be embarrassed when the city of Albany's name's on a building. And that is my concern. But with that, Commissioner Warmington, who's volunteering for this committee? Commissioner Fuller, anybody else?
I'll volunteer.
Thank you, Commissioner Fletcher.
I can't hear anybody.
Well,
I'll join the party, so I'll be the third one.
Okay.
With that, I can't hear you, Mayor. You must be muted.
I'm sorry. I'm having a problem. It's real complicated. You either got to press it on green or red. So, for purposes of clarification, I will ask Commissioner Warmington to restate the motion so we're all have an understanding of what we're voting on.
So the motion is to pause construction as of tomorrow on any and all trades that's feasible. If there's 1 or 2 that's in the building in the middle of work, let them finish. But pretty much everybody, if they haven't been on site, haven't delivered, then let's pause. And Mr. Fuller is going to be the chairman of this committee. I assume a few of us joined in with him. And so as of tomorrow, as quick as he can round a group together, we'll start talking about where we're at, the budget items that maybe we've not considered because we were under this $1 million cap, and come back to our commission in 2 weeks with a report, even a recommendation for approval to move forward with the project.
Mayor, I'll go ahead and offer myself for that committee as well.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Young.
But I think the key thing was we're trying to get back to this commission in 2 weeks. So we won't hit our work session next week, but I would assume we could hit the work session the 3rd week of August is when we could plan to be back to this commission with a report, which is a little more than 2 weeks, but so it might be 3 weeks by the time we get back as a group.
Is there any unreadiness, or can we vote on this?
Mayor?
Can I read something, Mayor?
Mayor?
Yes, ma'am. Let me get the Mayor Pro Tem and I'll get right back with you.
Mr. Warburton, your motion will be that we would just what you call a fact-finding mission, but not to rebid the whole thing back out again, right?
Yeah, I personally believe we're too far down the track to go back. But again, this committee may all come together and come back in our next meeting and say, hey, the committee recommends to rebid, or the committee may come back and say, let's continue on the path that we're on. So at this moment, I don't think that we're almost too far into it. It's my personal opinion to stop and completely rebid again. But that could be a discussion for this group, I assume.
Okay, I can vote to go along with that, as we just do not go back to square one to rebid it out, but to get a better understanding of what this committee come back to the commission board.
Thank you. Ms. Subadan?
You have identified 4 people who cannot be on a committee unless it's a public meeting. So Matt Fuller, BJ Fletcher, and we need a 3rd, but we don't need 4.
Anybody that volunteered, I want them to be able to serve. The only thing we need to do is send out a public notice, right?
Well, it's not an only. I mean, if it's a publicly noticed meeting, there's a whole process associated with that.
Okay. I see. So we need to ask if anybody would resign or withdraw the name.
To be honest with you, I think it's fine to do the 4. And whenever Mr. Fuller sets up the meeting, we just need to give 48 hours notice. And anybody from the community can come either, because I assume we're going to meet via virtual with Zoom. So I don't have a problem. Does any other of the 3 commissioners have a problem with it being a public meeting?
Well, no, not at all. I think that's exactly what I would do. Keep it transparent.
Okay.
I don't mind about 4 commissioners. The only thing I would say is I think for a project like this, Commissioner Warmington, that I'm going to intend to go to the site, of course, with a mask and using social distancing. But I think that's going to be important for the committee to get eyes on what's going on there.
You can do background work and then officially meet. Then we can notice the meeting. But if, for example, you wanted to do a meeting on site, it will be a little challenging to have a public meeting on site and then broadcast everything else. So
maybe we can just select different, we can rotate on which commissioners actually meet on site when we meet and keep that at 3.
I don't think that's the way to do it.
If the 4 commissioners are willing to abide by the open records, I think that's the way we ought to do it. We just.
All right, we'll work it out. If that's the way you want to do it, we'll figure out if you want to do a meeting from there, then we'll figure out how to do it and broadcast it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. All right. With that, call the roll. Mr. Hicks?
Yes, excuse me.
I'm sorry, Ms. Fuller. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask Mr. Gray, what's scheduled right now over these next, I guess now Commissioner Warmington mentioned it would run out to 3 weeks before we would have that back on our agenda. What, Mr. Gray, what do you have scheduled over the next 3 weeks to be done?
Right now, we're moving past the framing and gypsum board, working into getting doors, storefronts, hardware, and then we'd be moving on to painting and starting water service upgrades. Make sure I gave you the right thing there. So that's pretty much where we are right now. The framing, which I believe was pointed out, some folks have seen that. So that's ongoing right now.
Well, so I wouldn't want to pull the framers out of there. So if we're gonna do, if we're gonna halt 3 weeks, can we keep the framers? Is everybody okay with the framers moving along? And then if they, I guess you got to have your electrician would be coming in to run wires through that framing before you would do any drywall. I would guess.
Yes, sir. As soon as the framers got done, we'd start with the network cabling.
Okay. So I would recommend that we keep the framing. I would hate to pull, because, the other thing from a contractor standpoint or a subcontractor standpoint is when you've got this stuff scheduled and you pull somebody off, it's not just going to be a delay of 3 weeks. We're going to have a delay of trying to get the subcontractors back there. So we just need to keep that in mind. So if everybody would be okay with the framing continuing, I think that's something we ought to keep going over these next few weeks.
Yes, sir.
Any further discussion?
Well, yes, sir. I'd like to say something, Mayor. I've always been told that you can't have 4 commissioners at one time in a meeting, and we can work it out. We can work it out, but I don't see stopping the work. The board is to set policies, not to direct the daily operations, and it sounds like that's what we're doing, and it's going to go into 4 weeks when we follow this timeline. So I don't see stopping the work. If we've got some points that we want to make and we want to talk about, then life goes on. But I don't really know many businesses that if they want to make a change, they just stop. They just stop and decide to pick back up when them changes are made. And that's what I got to say. Thank you, sir.
Any further questions or comments? If not, Ms. Hicks, you call the roll.
Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
No.
Ward 3,
No.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
No.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes.
The next item is alcohol.
Mayor.
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
4 no's.
Who? John was a yes.
4, and Mayor.
I thought Commissioner Young was a yes.
Commissioner Young?
Yes. I said yes.
Okay.
So for some reason, you all keep going on mute.
Mr. Hicks, the first and the next item, the request for alcohol license at 1020 Flint has been removed. Is that correct? Okay. Would you read the next item, please, sir?
Next item is Bottoms Up, located at 719 North Westover Boulevard. M. Patel is the agent, liquor, beer, and wine package.
We've previously discussed this. Is Mr. Norman on the line?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Would you give us a brief overview?
Yes, sir. Bottom Up Package Store is located at 719 North Westover. It has submitted an application for an alcohol license for a package store of liquor, beer, and wine by Umang Patel at 1602 McIntosh and Milan Patel at 1801 Groves Lane. This type of business is a package store. It will be ran by the applicants. It's currently zoned at C2. It's on Artery Street and it's in Ward 5. The distance requirements must be greater than 200 yards from schools and 100 yards from churches. The closest school is Westover Comprehensive High School at 2600 Partridge Drive at 800 feet. And the nearest church was First Free Will Baptist at 420 North Westover at 4,000 feet. The closest package store is the Lighthouse Liquor, located at 2810 Old Dawson Road, and it is greater than 2,000 feet. This establishment has not been constructed yet. The police have not had any open investigations at this location, and this applicant has placed an article in the Albany Herald 10 days prior before this meeting to notify the general public that the application would be considered for approval. The applicant and the location meet requirements, and staff recommends approval.
Any questions for Mr. Norman, Mayor Pro Tem?
Mr. Norman.
Yes, sir.
This is in the 700 block of North Westover, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that's off Dawson Road going south toward Westover High School?
Yes, sir. Right there next door to where Nuke's restaurant is.
Okay, I got you.
Commissioner Fuller?
No questions.
Commissioner Fletcher?
No questions.
Commissioner Warmington?
No questions.
Commissioner Langstaff?
No questions, and I will move for approval.
Okay, let me get through
as soon as,
okay. Commissioner Young?
yeah, as soon as Ward 6 is done.
No questions.
I would entertain a motion for approval.
Ward 5 moves for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Mayor Pro Tem?
No.
Mr. Fuller?
No discussion. Are we asking for discussion? Or
Yes, sir.
voting?
We'll get around. We're voting. We'll get.
Okay.
Let me go through.
No questions.
Okay. Commissioner Fletcher?
No questions.
Commissioner Warburton?
Yeah, no questions.
Commissioner Langstaff?
No questions.
Commissioner Young?
No questions.
Mr. Hicks, can we have a vote? Call for the vote? I'm sorry.
Ward 1,
No.
Ward 2,
I'm abstaining.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes. Okay. Would you read the next item, Mr. Hicks?
The next item is Lighthouse Liquors located at 2810 Old Dawson Road. H. Manick is the aged liquor, beer, and wine package.
Mr. Norman still with us?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you give us a brief overview of this item, Mr. Norman?
Yes, sir. This is FCTG Investments, LLC, doing business as Lighthouse Liquors at 2810 Old Dawson Road. This application is submitted as a transfer from the current owner, from Hashish Patel, from 313 Falema Road in Albany, Georgia. This location will be ran by the agent. This is a package store. Currently it's zoned as C5 on a collector street and in Ward 5. The district requirements is not required because the establishment is currently open. The police has no open investigations at this location. The applicant placed an article in the Albany Herald 10 days prior to notify the general public that the application would be considered for approval. The applicant and location meet requirements and staff recommends approval.
Thank you, Mr. Norman. Any questions, Mr. Norman, Mayor Pro Tem?
No question, Mr. Norman.
Commissioner Fuller?
No questions.
Commissioner Fletcher?
No questions.
Commissioner Warburton?
Yeah, Mr. Norman, last meeting, I expressed some concern about the address of this company being in Atlanta, and Mr. Manick, his being a agent of the company, his address was listed in Atlanta. Did you do any more follow-up, or are you certain that his residency is in Albany, not in Atlanta?
Yes, sir. His residency in Albany. He have a lease agreement which went into effect on June the 8th of 2020, and it is currently at 313 Falema Road.
Okay. Thank you for the follow-up.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Langstaff?
No questions.
Commissioner Young?
No questions.
Mayor Pro Tem, do you want to ask a question, Mr. Norman?
Mr. Norman.
Yes, sir.
Let me do a little backtracking on the one at 719 North Westover Road.
Yes, sir.
And this is located in that little strip mall across from SunTrust Bank, right?
That's correct. Well, it's going to be an individual standing building. They're constructing it, so it will not be inside of the strip mall.
Okay. And a point of clarification, Vine Church have a school, right?
They do.
So would that be closer to Vine School or Westover High School?
I believe it's still going to be closer to Westover High School. Either or, it's going to still be outside of the requirements in order to have an alcohol license there, because it just have to be greater than 300 feet.
That's it.
Okay. Now, roll call for the application to transfer the license for Lighthouse Liquor, 2810 Old Dawson Road.
Ward 1.
I think you needed a motion, didn't you? Did you get a motion in a second on this one?
I'm sorry. And do we have a motion?
Ward 5 moves to approve.
Second.
Okay. Commissioner Fuller, second. Any further discussion? I'm sorry. Mayor Pro Tem?
No.
Commissioner Fuller?
No, sir.
Commissioner Fletcher?
No, sir.
Commissioner Warburton?
No further discussion.
Commissioner Langstaff?
No further discussion.
Okay, thank you for correcting me there. I'm sorry. Commissioner Young?
No further discussion.
Okay, can we roll call, Ms. Hicks?
Ward 1.
No.
Ward 2.
Yes.
Ward 3.
Yes.
Ward 4.
Yes.
Ward 5.
Yes.
Ward 6.
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes. The next item on the agenda, Ms. Hicks, you want to read?
The next item is various city board appointments, and I'll start with number 1. Number 1 is the Albany Doherty Land Bank, 2 appointments for a 2-year term ending July 2022. Eric Williams, Jamie Cobb requested to be considered for reappointment. Will Davis submitted the application and resume to be considered for appointment, and staff recommends reappointing Eric Williams and Jamie Cobb.
Okay.
Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I move that we follow staff recommendation to appoint Eric William and Jamie Cobb.
Is there a second?
I second it. Ward 4.
Any discussion?
Ward 1.
Yes.
Ward 2.
Yes.
Ward 3.
Yes.
Ward 4.
Yes.
Ward 5.
Yes.
Yes.
Ward 6.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Mayor.
Yes.
The next item is Albany Doherty Planning Commission, 1 appointment to fill unexpired term ending January 2022. Ms. Darren Hart, Dominique Riggins, Larry Harris, and Alma Noble submitted info to be considered for appointment.
Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I nominate Mr. Derek.
I second.
I need some direction on how the commission wants to handle this. Do we want to entertain other nominations, or we just want to vote on them as they're raised?
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor.
I'd like to nominate Darren Hart.
I think Mr. Harp has already been nominated, Commissioner.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Thank you.
No. What I'm asking though is, are we going to vote on the first nomination, or do we want to leave it open for nominations before we start taking votes?
I would say remove that. The nomination be closed on the first name.
Okay. Is anybody take issue with Commissioner Howard?
No, you want to close the nominations with the first, just the first name?
Well, there's only one position, and I think if we close the nominations, then you'd have to vote on that nominee, and either he or she would be appointed, and if he or she is appointed, there's no further votes. But if he or she is not appointed, then the floor opens up to the any other nominee. Is that correct, Ms. Davis?
Yes, sir, that's exactly right. Thanks.
But if Commissioner Young, if you have objection to that,
Well, I mean, I at least want to get on the record my vote for the person that I would like to see on that board, but I don't know how I do that with that particular process.
Well, I mean, if you object to it,
I do.
Okay. All right. And do you have a nomination?
Well, you mentioned Dominic Riggins, so that's who I would like to nominate.
Okay. Is there a second for Mr. Riggins? I would second Mr. Riggins' nomination. Okay. First, we'll call for Darren Harp. Mr. Hicks?
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
No.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
No.
Ward 6?
No.
Mayor?
How many yeses do you have? Okay, no. Now we'll call Dominic Riggins.
Ward 1? Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Young got out of order. Ward 4 is no.
Ward 5?
Ward 5 is a yes.
Ward 6?
Ward 6 is yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Okay, next, Mr. Hicks. I mean, I guess we should say Mr. Riggins is duly appointed to the Albany Doherty Planning Commission. Is that correct? Okay. Next, Mr. Hicks.
The next item is Aviation Commission. 2 appointments for a 3-year term ending July 2023. The Aviation Commission recommends reappointing Dr. Gillespie and Mr. Hodges.
I would like to nominate Mr. Simmons. Is there a second? Yes.
I will second it.
Any other nominations?
Well, I make a motion to reappoint Dr. Gillespie and Mr. Hodges.
I second.
Okay. Could we take them separately? I think that'd be the way to do it.
Yes, sir, that would be the way to do it.
Commissioner Fuller, would that be acceptable?
Yes, sir, I'm okay with that.
Well, can you nominate them separately and get a second?
Okay, I nominate Dr. Gillespie.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. And would you also like to nominate Judge Hodges?
I'll also nominate Mr. Hodges.
Is there a second? Okay.
Second, Mayor.
Okay, good. First, I guess we'll call for Mr. Simmons.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
No.
Ward 3?
No.
Ward 4?
No.
Ward 5?
No.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
3.
Dr. Gillespie was the second nominated. 6, can we call?
Ward 1?
Yeah. So I'm sorry, just to clarify, was Mr. Simmons appointed then?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask at the end of a vote that you announced heard? We're seeing people that
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Hardly. But what I was going to do, Ms. Subadan, after we got to these other, I was going to say who the 2 appointees were.
And can you do the same thing on motions? Because people can't see the screen, they don't quite know what's going on.
Okay. Well, Mr. Simmons received 3 votes, 1 less than required for appointment. So now we're voting on Dr. Gillespie's request to be reappointed.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Dr. Gillespie is reappointed. And now we will call for Judge Hodges' request to be reappointed to the Aviation Commission.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Next item, Mr. Hicks.
The next item is Citizens Transportation Committee, 1 appointment to fill unexpired term ending January 2023.
And Alman submitted letter and resume to be considered
for appointment.
Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Would anyone like to nominate either Mr. Capps or Ms. Noble or anybody else?
I would like to nominate Mr. Bruce Capp.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem has nominated Mr. Capp. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second. Any nominations?
I'd like to nominate Ms. Noble.
Okay. Is there a second for Ms. Noble?
Second.
Okay. Can we call on the application of Mr. Capps first?
Mayor, you got to close nominations.
Move that the nomination be closed on the said 2 names.
Second.
Ward 5, second.
Okay. So
Point of order.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. How many positions are open on this board?
1.
Just 1? Okay.
Yes, sir. So calling for the Mr. Capps' request for appointment. Mr. Hicks.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
No.
Ward 4?
Yes. Ward 4.
Ward 5?
Yes. Ward 5.
Ward 6?
No.
Mayor?
Yes. So Mr. Capps is appointed to fill the unexpired term on the Citizens Transportation Committee. Next item, Ms. Hicks.
The next item is Community Development Council, 19 appointments for 1 term ending June 2021. The following requested to be reappointed. There's Tracy Taylor, Angelina Rainey, Timothy Wooden, Clifford Porter, Delinda Bryant, Eloise Moore, Timothy Sweethope, and Sherelle Bird. Carol Turner, Connie Toppler Haynes, Clara Knight, and Almano will submit a letter and resume to be considered for appointment.
A point of order.
Mayor. I was going to ask, Mr. Higgs, it's 19 appointment. Do you know how many individuals?
I think we got 12 applicants.
We got 12 applicants. How many vacancies we have?
You have 8 and 5 people are asking to be appointed. So if you appoint all of them, you'll have 13, be 6 vacancies left.
Have 6 vacancies. Okay. I did,
continue to advertise.
Mayor, I got a call from Mr. John Hawthorne would like to be appointed at this board.
Okay. Is that all, Mayor Pro Tem? as I understand it, we have the 19 vacancies. Okay.
Correct.
And so we have 8 members who want to be reappointed.
Correct.
We have 4 citizens who have submitted a letter of interest. 5. Is that including Mr. Hawthorne?
He would be 6.
Okay. But if we had all 6, we would be 1 short. Is that correct?
No, you'd be 5 short.
8, 5. Okay. I would make a motion that all 8 present serving members be reappointed, that the 4 individuals who submitted letters of interest, Carol Turner, Connie Tobler-Hayes, Carol Knight, and Alan Novo, be appointed, as well as Mr. John Hawthorne, who's expressed an interest to Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further, I guess, any discussion, Mayor Pro Tem?
No discussion.
Mr. Fuller?
No discussion.
Commissioner Fletcher?
No discussion.
Commissioner Warbington?
No discussion.
Commissioner Langstaff?
No discussion. Good idea.
Commissioner Young?
No discussion.
Okay. Can we call the
let me add this, and I don't know if it's a issue or not, but I did also make contact with Mr. Hawthorne, and I had actually told him we would probably do it at the next meeting because he had not submitted a letter of interest. So I was just wondering, in the process, are we going to just allow that to be done, or are we going to go through the formal process where we submit letters to the city clerk before we add people to the appointment agenda?
Oh, good point. I don't know where we at now, Mr. Davis. I remember some occasions where an individual who had not even submitted an application was nominated and considered over people who had expressed an interest, and that seems somewhat unfair. And I guess it's sort of a formality here, but it's a good thing we're bringing it up, and let's address it. What is the present policy of the commission, Mr. Davis?
I don't know what the present policy is, but since you've got so many openings,
right?
I would think that makes it moot for right now.
Well, I mean, but I think we need to understand, I certainly need to understand what the policy is. Can someone who has not submitted a letter of interest and a resume, whatever is required, be nominated? I mean, the next thing we're going to vote on is the Historic Preservation Commission. We've got more people want to be appointed than we have vacancies, and that could be a problem if I nominated a friend of mine from church,
Yes, sir.
So I guess could we look and see? I know it kind of vacillated when I was on the commission before, and if we could find out what the present policy is that acceptable, Commissioner Young?
Yes, sir. We can go ahead with the nomination as it is, and the motion as it is. I just wanted. Can you hear me now? Hold on.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me now?
We can.
You can?
Okay. Yeah, I didn't want to stop the motion. The motion was fine. I just wanted to be sure that we were going by whatever policy it was, because I had told Mr. Hawthorne it would be probably August, but it's fine as it is.
Okay. Well, it is something.
Just to clarify what Demetrius said, Demetrius, as an old wizard, you can rest assured these 19 appointments, that this has been a board for a number of years to get 19 individuals to serve on this board.
So with that, Mr. Davis, and
I need a second.
Was the chair made a motion? Is there a second?
I second.
Mayor Pro Tem seconds. Any further discussion? Mayor Pro Tem.
No further discussion.
Commissioner Fuller.
No, sir.
Commissioner Fletcher,
No discussion.
Commissioner Warmington,
No discussion.
Commissioner Langstaff,
No discussion.
Commissioner Young.
No discussion.
Can we call a roll call vote?
Ward 1. Ward 2.
Yes.
Ward 3.
Yes.
Ward 4.
Yes.
Ward 5.
Yeah.
Ward 6.
Yes.
Mayor. Yes. Next item, Ms. Tiggs. Oh, and so all the applicants, Madam City Manager, all the applicants, including the 8 members who are presently serving, and Mr. Hawthorne appointed.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
The next item is the Historic Preservation Commission, 4 appointments for a 2-year term ending August 2022. Rosemary Hamburger, Valerie Buchanan, Deborah Riley requested to be considered for reappointment. Greg Fullerton requested to not be considered for reappointment. And Dominique Riggins and Bruce Cap submitted a letter and resume to be considered for appointment.
And one note, there was one applicant that Ms. Talbert sent out yesterday as well. That was Molly Swan.
Nominations.
May I open nominations?
Yes, sir.
I move to nominate Bruce Capps to be appointed.
Okay, second. Any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate.
Ward 5 nominates Molly Swan.
Ward 2 nominates Valerie Buchanan.
Hold. I'm sorry. Could
I second Molly Swan.
okay. Now,
And I'm sorry, I was out of turn. Ward 2 came in and nominated Valerie Buchanan.
okay, I second Ms. Buchanan. Any other nominations?
Also, Ward 2 nominates Ms. Hamburger.
I will second Ms. Hamburger's nomination. Any further nominations?
Also, Deborah Riley.
Does Ms. Riley have a second?
Second from Ward 5.
Okay. Any further nominations? With that, could we start by calling the nomination of Mr. Capps?
Mayor, have to vote close nominations.
Okay. I'd entertain a motion to close the nominations.
I move the nomination be closed on this said name.
I didn't catch. Did Mr. Capps get a second?
Yes, sir.
Oh, he did. Okay, I didn't hear it.
Is there a second to close the nominations?
Second.
Okay. Could we start with Mr. Capps?
Ward 1.
Yes.
Ward 2.
No.
Ward 3.
No.
Ward 4.
Yes.
Ward 5.
No.
Ward 6.
Yes.
Mayor.
You skip.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Ward 6.
Yes, that's for Capps, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes. Is Ms. Swan was the second nominated, Ms. Tiggs?
Correct.
Okay. Could we have a roll call vote, Ms. Swan?
Ward 1.
Yes.
Ward 2.
Yes.
Ward 3.
Yes.
Ward 4.
Yes.
Ward 5.
Yes.
Ward 6.
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes. Ms. Buchanan is the third nominated. Okay, can we have a vote on Ms. Buchanan?
Ward 1.
Yes.
Ward 2.
Yes.
Ward 3.
Yes.
Ward 4.
Yes.
Ward 5.
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. I think Ms. Hamburger was the fourth nominated. Is that correct? Okay, can we have a vote on Ms. Hamburger?
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Is that 4 appointments, Ms. Hicks? The appointments would be Mr. Capps, Ms. Buchanan, Ms. Hamburger, and Ms. Swan. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, next item.
The last item is Keep Albany Doherty Beautiful. 1 appointment to fill unexpired term ending January 2021. Keep Albany Doherty Beautiful recommends the appointment of Rachel Lawrence.
Mayor, I move to keep in the process that the board say appoint Ms. Rachel Lawrence.
Okay.
I second.
Any further nominations to the Keep Albany Doherty Beautiful board?
Move that nomination be closed and say it one name.
Is there a second?
Second. Ward 4.
Could we have a roll call, Mr. Hicks?
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. And
Mayor. You hear me?
yes, Ms. Subadam.
It seemed like Deborah Riley was nominated by Mr. Fuller, and it was seconded, but I didn't hear you call it.
Well, we 4 people were voted on and appointed. There were 5 nominations.
I got it.
And since Ms. Riley was the last appointed, we didn't vote on her.
I got it. Okay, thank you.
The next item is Citizen Advisory Committee. 1 appointment for term ending January 2022, and that's Ward 5.
Ward 5 appoints Dr. Adam Jones.
The next appointment is the APD Civilian Review Board, and that's 1 appointment for term ending December 2022, and that's Ward 2.
Ward 2 appoints Will Davis.
The next item is the Mayor's Board appointments. The first one is the Citizens Advisory Committee, 1 appointment for terms ending January 2022. Tiffany McCullough and Charles Ultra submitted letter and resume to be considered for appointment.
I would appoint Dr. Ochi.
The next appointment is APD Civilian Review Board, 1 appointment for term ending December 2021. Will Davis, David N. Cook, Charles Ochi, and Alma Noble submitted letter and resume to be considered for appointment.
I'd appoint Ms. Noble.
That concludes appointments.
Now we'll proceed to the ordinances. The next item is a conditional item, request to repeal saggy pants ordinance. Commissioner, is this your item?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, would you like to speak to it, please, sir? Or would you?
Well, I guess I'll yield to the current process where we kind of go around the horn.
Well, I think we have to have a motion or not. Okay,
Oh, okay.
Okay, no, okay, all right. Any discussion? Mayor Pro Tem?
To the mayor and to the commission and to the commission that from the 6th that request that it be put back on the agenda to repeal this sagging pants ordinance. I'm going to vote in opposition to it, and there are several reasons why I'm going to vote in opposition to it. I think that there's a lot that has been in the news lately about not only this and about dress codes and other activities. And I think that this will be a step in the wrong direction. And I would cite many cases that we need to inform and educate young men, whether they are black or white, that wear these sagging pants, that we have to instill in them social skills that to be well informed when they go out into the real world to apply for jobs. And I am of the opinion is that these sagging pants individuals, if you're going to apply for a job in some of these HR departments, like at probably Miller Coors, Procter & Gamble, or Tara Food, that is known worldwide, I think that young men need to dress appropriate, be appropriate, and to make sure that when they leave home that they have on a belt and the sagging pants is something that does not look well in the public eye. And for a good example is that when you go into places for restaurants or buffet, it's not becoming to see individuals coming there with sagging pants. It's a turnoff. And I think that if we can convince this millennial generation is that we're not trying to violate your rights or whatever, but at the same time, want you to be good stewards and well-informed and educated, and to respect senior citizens by pulling your pants up. And so I'm going to vote in opposition to it because I think that we need to set a good example for the next generation.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Commissioner Fuller?
No discussion.
Commissioner Fletcher?
No discussion.
Commissioner Warmington?
Yeah, no discussion.
Commissioner Langstaff?
No discussion.
Commissioner Young?
Yes, sir. I appreciate the Mayor Pro Tem's comments. What I would say to the Mayor Pro Tem is that there has not been a time since the saggy pants ordinance was in effect that any of the things that that you mentioned that the saggy pants ordinance actually helped. It didn't help anybody get a job. It didn't help anybody look any better in the restaurants or whatever, those types of things. But what I will say to the issue is that we're talking about standards. Now, I got sent an article where President Obama was addressing the saggy pants ordinance back, I guess, when it was implemented and where it was being implemented around the country. He had the same sentiment that I did. And my sentiment is, no, I don't like the saggy pants fashion. I don't approve of it with my young relatives. And when they're around me, I tell them to pull their pants up. But he also agreed that he did not think that an ordinance was needed to set that particular standard. My predecessor, who is well thought of by many on this commission, was the author of the saggy pants ordinance. And I think some folks have kind of misconstrued that because a Black man, instituted that ordinance, that somehow it did not have the racial connotations that it has. I appreciate Mr. Warmington's research into the statistics, and I appreciate the chief of police providing those statistics. So what we know is that since the Saggy Pants Ordinance was put into effect, 1,060 African American males were cited up under the Saggy Pants Ordinance, while there were double digits of any other racial groups, between both sexes. And actually, there were more Black females cited under the Saggy Pants Ordinance than white males. So, and not saying that there was anything that any individual officers did. We know we have a lot of Black officers, just as we have we have white officers. But because of the law, it creates a situation where you have to profile, because this is a fashion statement that is, of course, largely practiced by African Americans. And in that light, only, makes this ordinance discriminatory and makes it follow along racial lines. Now, if you read the Herald article that many people read, you know that there is a history in this country of basically policing Black fashion. You can go all the way back. I didn't even know that until I read the Herald article that said that zoot suits were banned back in the 40s. Zoot suits covered up everything. Your pants were up to your chest, but zoot suits were banned. And we know this was an African American fashion. But if you want to fast forward to the 60s, when we had the hippie counterculture, and many of you all who are in that age group remember where there was very little clothing wear. A lot of people, I can remember when I was young, folks white folks walking into stores and restaurants, maybe not having on shoes, maybe not having on a shirt. But what you did not get an ordinance. You did not get a law that said you couldn't do that. What you got was the famous sign that says, no shirt, no shoes, no service. You didn't get any type of ordinance or law that tied you to a criminal offense or some type of fine. I find it very troubling, especially in this particular time where we're talking about a lot of issues with the Black community and police, that we are still very much tied to and very comfortable with policing Black bodies and policing Black folks in a way that we don't seem to have the will to police other folks. I mean, right here, right now in Georgia, we can't even find our way to mandate wearing a mask to save lives. We know what the doctors have said about wearing a mask, but all the way up to the highest office in Georgia, we can't seem to find the courage to do something that we know is going to save lives and keep people from catching the coronavirus. But we can, get many comments and get all stirred up and actually legislate a law that talks about whether or not some young man's pants are pulled up. Now, what I say to Mayor Pro Tem, my elder, and the rest of my elders who have shared with me their thoughts on saggy pants and really who hate the fashion and tie that particular fashion to either low character or something that is offensive in their eyesight. I can say to you that, as far as being offended, as far as feeling that those things should not be happening in our community, I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly. But what the difference is I don't think that this should be a matter for police. This should be a matter for our community to hold up its standards, our community to police its own children, not the police policing our children, but our community policing our children. My predecessor, Mr. Tommy Postel, served for many years as a teacher, teaching young Black men to respect themselves and dress respectfully and dress for the job that you wanted. I remember one of my not colleagues, but Mr. Marvin Laster talking at Mr. Postel's retirement in the government center, talking about how Mr. Postel had taught him to how to dress, how to put on your shirt, put on your hat, and look a certain way. But that came from the community. That came from an elder that knew him, cared about him, and respected him first off. It did not come from a law enforcement person who would possibly fine him, or in some instances that we have seen even injure him. Now, what does having the saggy pants law, what does that have to do with, I guess, how Black folks are seen, or Black youth in particular are seen? I'll share with you a message that I got from a citizen, and I just want to, if you allow me, Mayor, I just want to play a little bit of it, so you'll understand where I'm coming from, and what we could possibly be, where these attitudes come from when we try to legislate behavior, when we try to put in ordinances that stigmatize folks. So let me just play a little bit. This is for you, if you all can hear it. You could stop me if you don't hear it.
I understand that y'all are in the process of trying to redo the saggy pants ordinance. I object to that. I feel like it needs to be enforced further, and probably even a stiffer fine than a $25 fine for them on the first offense, and maybe we can do away with it. Because of the indecent exposure, I am a tax-paying citizen here in Albany, Georgia, and I work very hard at TV Putney Memorial Hospital, and I'm offended by people walking through the doors. And I'm not talking about just Black people. I'm talking about white people, too, that walk through the doors and showing their underwear and showing their butt cracks and having the pants down below the butt cheeks. And it's offensive to me. And I hope you understand that. And I hope you understand that to me, it's indecent exposure. I object to it. And I feel like it needs to be a stiffer fine for people that abuse the situation, and they need to be penalized. And whether it makes them a criminal or not, it needs to be enforced. And it needs to be enforced with consistency. And that's the problem, is we don't have consistent enforcement of the codes. And that's why people do what they do. That's why they shoot up the neighborhoods, because we let them get away with everything. And we don't stand up and say, that is wrong. And I want you to rescind your motion to take this off the books, because I feel like, as a tax-paying citizen, I'm tired of looking at butt cracks. Thank you very much, and I hope you don't take offense to my calling. But I'm offended by looking at butt cracks and indecent exposures and saggy underwear, and I'm just offended by it. And I hope you understand that. Thank you.
Okay. So why I played that is to get you to understand how we go from being offended to assuming that somebody with their pants down or whatever fashion statement we don't like, and thinking that they are criminal, thinking that they're shooting up the neighborhood based on what fashion statement that you don't like. Now, again, like I said, I don't agree with the saggy pants fashion statement. That wasn't from my generation. That wasn't something that, I like to see my young associates do. But when we codify that offense in law and then assign a fine to it, and especially with young Black men, it becomes a criminalization of clothes. Clothes should not be criminalized. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because we are in a time where we see a lot of things put on Black folks when we try to police them. You know, we can hardly, and I don't mean this as a knock on anything, because I think the things that we try to do have the best intent, but sometimes they have the worst offense. We talk a lot, there's been a lot of talk about how the 94 crime bill was started to help fight crime, but we wound up, you know, with criminalization that has affected the Black community in a way that just is staggering. That's what we got for the crack epidemic. And for this particular offense, we have young men being fined, 1,000 young men over the life of this ordinance when everybody else is in single digits. And I would just ask that you consider that. If you think that we need a law to express your distaste or to express your disgust and offense, then so be it. But I would say to you, and I know we have all these stories about seeing butt cracks and what we think these young men will say to us if we say pull up your pants, but I've never had any one young man that tell me when I asked him to pull his pants up, do anything but pull his pants up. You know, we can't make a mandate to have a mask that's going to save lives, but we're very comfortable having a law against saggy pants, which doesn't do nothing but make your nose turn up. And I'll leave it at that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Young. Okay, now do we have a motion to repeal the saggy pants ordinance?
Yes, sir. I'll make the motion to repeal the ordinance.
Do we have a second? I'll make the second just so we can go ahead and vote on it and get it over with. Any discussion? Again, second time around, Mayor Pro Tem.
No further discussion.
Commissioner Fuller?
No discussion.
Commissioner Fletcher?
No discussion.
Commissioner Warmington?
Yeah, no further discussion.
Commissioner Langstaff?
No discussion.
Commissioner Young, any further comments?
No, sir.
Okay. Could we call the roll?
Ward 1?
No.
Ward 2?
No.
Ward 3?
No.
Ward 4?
No.
Ward 5?
No.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Mayor?
No. The motion fails. The next item, Mr. Hicks.
The next item is two ordinances. The first is establishing liability insurance requirement regarding dangerous dogs, deleting the surety bond requirement. And the second is a liability insurance and surety bond requirement regarding dangerous dogs. It's either or.
Okay. I guess maybe Mr. Davis could speak to this.
Sure.
I had asked that we eliminate the surety requirement. I've seen some discussion about it's lessening. I don't see it that way, but if Mr. Davis could kind of give us an explanation
Yes,
of what we're looking at.
All right, so thank you, Mayor. The lessening of the ordinance, I'll call it, removing the surety bond requirement is the ordinance you see at page 32. The ordinance you see at page 30 would require the surety bond, and both ordinances now require liability insurance in at least $50,000 as set forth in OCGA section 4-8-27C4. So that's simply the difference between the two, is whether to, I'll say, keep a surety bond or go with just liability insurance.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Commissioner Warburton, you brought this up. You want to speak to it first? And
well, sure. So what I would like to do is I would like to table this matter for 30 days. I have spent a lot of time the last week with Mr. Capers. Chief Persley has provided a lot of data to me as well through emails. I think we have a lot of work to do on the dangerous dog ordinance. I think the surety bond and insurance is just one issue. And I know a citizen came to us asking us to reduce it when in fact we need to increase it. Now the surety bond, maybe that's a matter we just need to do away with the bond, because there's some issues with finding bonds. Most municipalities I've researched are anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million. Some municipalities in the metro Atlanta area require $1 million of insurance. Here ours sits at what, 50,000 or 30,000, a significant order of magnitude different from cities around the state. So that's going to be one proposal that I'm planning to make next month, is to increase the amount of the insurance required. The other thing that I would like to do, and I would present this to the commission next month, is we need to give more power, and I hate to use the word teeth because we're talking about dangerous dogs, but we need to give our animal control department, along with the police department, a lot more ability to retain dogs that have bit individuals, that have caused injury. There needs to be a swift course of action to get to euthanizing. Right now, there's a lot of gray areas. Who decides on euthanizing? If the owner does not comply, right now the main incident that brought this whole issue up, 2 dogs that severely injured in a resident. Chief Persley provided numerous incidents reports. So the dog not only severely injured a man, there were numerous incidents. And here we are 12 months later, and those 2 dogs are still alive. I do not understand that. So that's what I want to fix. I'm not placing blame. I'm not saying anybody made, but we are where we are. And when a dog causes an injury, there needs to be a swift decision by our animal control. If we need to get the animal board involved for an appeal, that needs to be a swift 10, 15-day turnaround. And there needs to be very clear path of either the citizen gets this new policy that I'm talking about, also complies with the recommendations of the animal control for the pen and the fence and all the other requirements. If they don't, the dog needs to be euthanized. That's really the 2 options. Should be no option of adopting the dog out, sending it to another state, trying to rehabilitate. If a dog causes significant injury to one of our citizens, those are the 2 actions. And so I say all that to say that's what I would like to propose and bring back to the commission. So when the time comes, I would be asking to table this matter. And also, I do know there's going to be a lot of citizens that's going to be coming to speak to us at our next meeting. So I would like to have a little time to be able to even present, as they come speak to us, what kind of our recommendations would be going forward. So thank you.
with the understanding that Commissioner Warburton's seeking to continue this matter. Any discussion, Mayor Pro Tem?
Mr. Warburton, let me ask you a question. Since I do respect each commissioner ward, but as we are talking today, are the dogs still at the Humane Society?
Yes, sir. The two that we're talking about, they are still at Humane Society.
A follow-up question. And this incident happened last year, right? And it was was it in August of last year? Is something suspicious about this. You keep a dog that long to make a decision, things of that nature. I received numerous calls from your constituents in the town and country area, and I was sad to say that one of the individuals told me at the last end she did share the name of the person that the dogs did attack, and unfortunate that was one of my classmates. But if we're going to table this for 30 days, I'm lost because to keep a dog that long, and I'm pretty sure it costs about $10 a day at the facility. And why is this person that had the dogs is being given special preferential treatment compared to myself or other individuals?
So Mr. Capers and I spent a good bit of time yesterday at the Humane Society. We asked those very questions. Unfortunately, there was no forced decision from the city to force them to euthanize these dogs. The owners have communicated that they're trying to meet the dangerous dog ordinance. That's one of the reasons why they came to us, trying to lower the standards. So I think there was a little bit of, hey, we're going to try to meet in a month passed, another month passed, another month passed. They still haven't met the requirements. And here we are 12 months later, and no one has taken action either way. So there's a lot of blame to go around. I don't point to one person in this one particular instance. Just to be completely transparent, I asked the director yesterday, why can those dogs not be euthanized immediately? So I'm waiting on that to happen. I did feel like that is going to happen, but I'm not speaking for the director because it is solely their decision at the Humane Society. But clearly these dogs, and this, again, we're talking about one incident. This is an incident that causes a lot of concern for me, as well as I got as many calls or more than Mr. Howard has communicated. This is a really serious situation. These dogs do not need to be adopted. They do not need to be sent to another state. The owners have had 11 months to comply. That is way more than enough time to comply. And those dogs need to be euthanized. And we're waiting on that to happen as soon as possible.
Mr. Mayor, can I do a follow-up question on the commissioner from Ward?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Ward, but let me ask you another question. One of the calls that I did receive as of yesterday saying that I guess that this process had taken such a long time that the female dog had some puppies. And I think they said the resident where these dogs attacked the next door neighbor, they still have the puppies, right? Nathan, let me ask you a question. Since this is in limbo, I would hate to be a resident out there and this person still got some dogs that probably maybe puppies, but something's not adding up. This person probably should be, I don't want to say on a list to not have dogs, but when they are not being in a secure place, that he or she should not have dogs at all in their facility. I mean, on the property as of now.
Well, if they're violating the city ordinance, and if they were, I'm sure Capers would have already brought a case. I don't know how many of those puppies. I heard a number, but I don't remember if it was 5 or 6, but I'm not sure they're still there.
If you remember at our last meeting, I did ask the owner, and I believe they had 11 puppies. The citizen acknowledged that they sold some, so they did make a profit on some, and they did keep some sounds like there's one or two they kept, and then one or two they said they gave away. So yeah, that is when the attack happened. The dog was pregnant, and so they allowed the dog to have the puppies during all the hearings and all that time. And that was a decision that was made to allow them to have the puppies. Mm-hmm.
That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Fuller?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Warburton, do you know, are the owners of the dogs, are they paying that $10 a day during this 11-month period?
I don't know it for sure. I asked the question. I think for them to get the dogs out, they would have to pay it. I don't know if they're being billed monthly or what, but obviously if they got them out, they would have to pay it. But that would be purely the Humane Society. That is not on the city. That would be part of their policy because also the dogs were spayed and neutered. And I'm sure there's a cost associated with that. And other vaccines or whatever that has probably taken place. So I would hope that the Humane Society would collect on all that, but that is totally up to that organization.
Okay, so they're feeding them and housing them for almost a year now. So yeah, I imagine that is getting pretty expensive. And of course, our contract price did just go up this year with the Humane Society. But no, that's all for me. Thank you.
Commissioner Fletcher?
No comments, sir.
Commissioner Warburton?
The only other piece of data I would share with the group is when Mr. Capers and I toured the Humane Society yesterday, we probably saw 7 dogs that have bite cases on their cage, which is indicative of a bite situation. Mr. Howard, since you and I were dialoguing about it, there was one dog that caused injury from East Albany that happened in February. The question was asked, why has this dog not been euthanized? It's been in the Humane Society since February. It caused injury to a person in Mr. Howard's ward. The difference with that case is no one has surfaced as the owner. So there's nobody wanting the dog. Nobody has claimed ownership. Nobody's wanting the dog. However, we still have a dog that has not been euthanized. So anyway, to say all that, to say we're focused on the one incident, and it is a horrendous incident, but there were 6 or 7 others that are just like this, that we just need something on the city side, that if somebody needs to be the bad guy, the city needs to be the bad guy. If the Humane Society, through their philosophy and through their direction, and I don't have a problem with that on strays and nice animals and kitty cats and dogs running down, but when you have a dog that inflicts injury on a human being, on one of our citizens, the city owes it to our citizens to take swift action, and more than not, it's going to end up in euthanizing animals. And that's where we've got to take swift action as a city on that. So that's it.
Commissioner Langstaff?
Well said, no comment.
Commissioner Young?
Yes, sir. I would say that we do need to look at the process because I guess in point of clarity, I'm trying to understand who has the absolute discretion to declare the dog to be euthanized. Now, if there's an incident with the dog, I understand that comes out during municipal court. So I guess the court would have some say so in there, as well as Mr. Capers with animal control. And then the other part of that is the Humane Society. And as Mr. Warburton was saying, where that whole discussion or vote comes, that's what needs to be clarified. I heard Mr. Capers say in the last meeting very distinctly that I voted to, I voted to, I guess, euthanize the dog. But this is what I understood him to say, that his vote was not with the rest of the people on the animal board. So I would like to have there be some clarity in that, and also the actual matter that's or what we're going to do about the actual matter that's up for discussion in terms of, are we going to raise this insurance rate? Have we gotten clarity from the city attorney about what we can put in place of this surety bond, where we're going to raise it up to $100,000, because that's what we need to know, or if we're going to just redo the dog ordinance altogether. All of that needs to be discussed. But I did receive a number of calls from people in the country club community with as many complaints as we got. I'm kind of wondering, just again, how that decision got made, that the owner could recover her dogs if they were that much of a problem, and if the Humane Society knew they were that much of a problem. What was their rationale behind that decision to save the dogs? Now, I will say, for the record, I'm not necessarily in favor of just euthanizing dogs as an answer to a problem that a human created. Again, the dog breeds are not at fault when these dogs become dangerous dogs. It's always the fault of a human, of their human owner. And I think there are places that dogs can get sent to be rehabilitated. We all know that a number of the dogs that came from dog fighting camps and things like that, have been rehabilitated. And I actually do think that does not need to be in the hands of the city unless we have somebody available who is capable and an expert in those types of decisions, not just willy-nilly starting, to kill dogs because nobody wants them. Somebody declared them dangerous or the owner made them dangerous. We need to do that with a little bit more thought process than to just say, okay, the city is going to be executioner of all these dogs. We just need to, think through that process and just do our due diligence in terms of protecting our community, making sure that the right decision gets made about allowing these dogs back into a neighborhood where there are children and families and things like that. The bad guy needs to be, the bad guy role needs to go to people making wrong decisions, owners being negligent. That's the bad guy role. When we declare those things, that's where it needs to be, not just, killing a quote unquote bad animal. Thank you, Mayor.
I think what would benefit me, I was been sort of confused by this, but I believe when I was on the commission before, the city had a pound, and so the city, it looks some years ago, negotiated with the Humane Society, and I believe what's happened is the city has relinquished the control over what happens with these dogs. And I'm not saying it's not appropriate to have this tribunal, but I think we need to know more about it. And I would ask that once this item is continued, Ms. Subadan, if we could sort of have a background, an explanation of how we got to where we are, and also maybe from the city attorney, an explanation as what is the process, so that certainly for my benefit. But with that, yes.
This is Joe Den. I represent the Humane Society.
Good evening, Joe. How you doing?
I'm good. There is a process in the ordinances, because I've spent the last several days looking through this. The city ordinances provides a process for declaring a dog dangerous, which then requires the owner to register the dog. If the dog is not properly registered, then it's delivered to the Humane Society or stays with the Humane Society. And then there is a process under state law to, if the owner cannot meet those requirements, to then seek an order from a court to euthanize the dog. The Humane Society's role is simply to house the dog and dispose of the dog, whether that be through transport out, adoption, just because a dangerous dog is not necessarily not allowed to be transported out under state law or under the ordinance. And so, I mean, the Humane Society can't just euthanize somebody's dog. I think the dog owner has due process to have a hearing for that to be determined. That's not the Humane Society's decision. I don't know where, because I was not aware of this situation until the last few days, but on the 2 dogs Mr. Warrington is talking about, I don't know how that process transpired and whether it followed the ordinances as it was supposed to. I was not involved, but I will be happy to work with the city attorney to work on ordinances that gives the city whatever authority that it has within the bounds of the state law and to direct whatever needs to be done. But I just want the record to be clear that the Humane Society does not make those decisions. And since the owners were still in this one situation was were trying to comply with the requirements to register the dog, then we were bound to hold on to that dog unless the owner authorized us to euthanize it or there was some order from somebody that had that authority.
Okay, if I misstated the law, Mr. Dent, I'm apologizing, but I mean, I didn't mean to express an opinion as an expert. What I was saying is I'm somewhat confused as to the city's authority because if I remember correctly, the city formerly operated a pound, and I guess the procedures or ethics or whatever for the pound were much different than the Humane Society. But that's what I'm asking for some clarification. Did you have anything else, Mr. Dent?
Well, I'll just say, I believe the current ordinance went into effect in 2003, which I believe was post your previous service.
Or I guess I would have been on the commission in 2003, so I should have remembered it. But thank you that. Commissioner Warrington, so what is your motion, please, sir?
The motion is to table this for 30 days and probably not the first work session, but by the second work session is to bring, obviously working with Chief Pursley and Mr. Capers, is to come back with recommendations of how we need to change our dangerous dog ordinance.
I second. Any discussion, Mayor Pro Tem?
No discussion.
Commissioner Fuller?
No discussion.
Commissioner Fletcher?
No discussion.
Commissioner Warrington?
Nothing else.
Commissioner Langstaff?
No.
Commissioner Young?
No discussion.
A lot of discussion already on the item that's been tabled, but if you would call the roll, Mr. Hicks.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. The next item, Mr. Hicks, I think we needed Mr. Brown. Is that right? Okay. If you'd read that.
The next item is levying and assessing the rate of taxation for city purposes on all taxable property in the city of Albany, Georgia for 2020.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. This is the request to adopt the village rate, which we are recommending the road bike rate of 9.668. And if adopted, it'll be the 6th consecutive year we will have adopted the roll back rate.
Mayor, I make a motion to roll back the rate as Mr. Brown recommended.
Second.
Ward 5 seconds.
I think Ward 2 beat you to it. But with that, for discussion, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioner Fuller.
No discussion.
Commissioner Fletcher.
No discussion.
Commissioner Warrington.
No discussion.
Commissioner Langstaff.
No discussion.
Commissioner Young.
Just one question for Mr. Brown.
Yes, sir.
I guess what is that going to put us? I guess with where we stand in terms, the COVID and a lot of I guess tax money being lost through COVID? Are we going to be in a difficult position in terms of not doing this rollback, or what do you anticipate?
Well, based on the current digest, we don't see a reduction actually in our digest. In fact, as a result of revaluations, the digest actually went up slightly. And if we don't roll back our rate, the documents show that we would actually get more tax revenue. And because of that, if we don't roll it back, the state views that as a tax increase. And so based on the tax base and the tax digest, we are not anticipating a loss of revenue at this moment.
And you're just talking about that's with the property tax. I'm talking about overall revenue. Are we going to, will that
overall
be affected
revenue
because of the?
Well, we've anticipated from a sales tax. Well, we've anticipated, at least we layered in a 15% reduction in sales tax revenue. That is already in our budget for this current fiscal year. We've accounted for that.
Okay. So y'all have that under
yes,
control.
Sir.
Okay. Okay. That's all I have.
Ward 1?
Yeah.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yeah.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Next, we move to resolutions.
Mayor, can I make a motion for multiple resolutions?
I think Ms. Talbert told me you can't do that because you have to have a number on it.
Right, but can I say those numbers in my motion?
Yes, you can do that.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Number 1 is a gas portfolio. Number 2, SPLOST 7 for alley paving. The grocery store letter of interest is number 3. Number 4 is a grant fund. And number 5 is the Motorola body cameras. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I offer that resolution to approve those 5 items.
And
Ward 5, second.
And I ask for its adoption.
Okay. I was going to vote no on 1. How are we going to do that?
Just vote no on all 5?
We can't.
Huh?
Mayor, you can remove that one from his list.
Okay. I would remove 1 from the list with that, so we can vote on 2, 3, 4, and 5 without discussion. Is that right?
I second.
Okay. With that, do we call them separately or call them out as a slate? Okay. That's good.
Ward 1?
Yeah.
Ward 2?
I'm yes on 3, 4, and 5, and I'm abstaining on 2.
Shirley on there?
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yeah.
Ward 6?
Okay, I missed a little bit. So 2, 3, 4, and 5. That's what we're voting on.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
Go back to 1.
Okay. This is the, you want to read that item, Ms. Hicks?
The first item is approving the amendment to gas supply contract and supplement contract, each among the Gas Authority, the City of Albany, Georgia, and the City of Albany Utility Board.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Mayor Pro Tem?
No discussion.
Commissioner Fuller? Mr. Fletcher?
No discussion.
Commissioner Warburton?
Yeah, no discussion.
Commissioner Langstaff?
No discussion.
Commissioner Young?
No discussion.
Okay. My objection to this contract, as I stated previously, is staff did not solicit other proposals, and we weren't presented with options. So that's my concern. But if we call the roll, Ms. Hicks.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yeah.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Mayor?
Mayor votes no. Next item is entering into an agreement with the Albany Humane Society. Chief Pursley on the line? Or not?
Evening, Mayor, Commissioner.
Oh, hey,
Yes, sir.
look nice.
Thank you. My wife, she dressed me this morning. Mayor, we're coming forward to authorize an execution of the memorandum of agreement for the housing of abandoned and delinquent animals with the Albany Humane Society for fiscal year 2020 to 2021.
Anybody have any questions of Chief Pursley, Mayor Pro Tem?
No question.
Commissioner Fuller?
No questions.
Commissioner Fletcher?
No questions.
Commissioner Warmington?
Not really a question, but just I kind of let the group know where I'm going with this. I'm going to offer, when the time's right, to table this for 30 days as well. I think there's part of this agreement that deals with dangerous dogs that we need to get clarity in the contract once we get clarity on how our ordinance handles dangerous dogs. And I think it's number 8 in this contract that this needs to be, in my opinion, solidified and clearly aligned with whatever we end up doing next month. The other thing I just want to offer, I talked to Ms. Kaufman yesterday, had a very good conversation with her. I mean, they do really good work at the Humane Society. So none of my comments, I don't want it to tarnish the Humane Society because they do a great job with the strays and the unwanted animals and adoption and all that piece. It's really just the dangerous dog part that really we need some clarity on. The other thing she and I talked about, and this would be something that if we table it for 30 days, I would ask the commission to consider, is maybe having 1 or 2 board appointments on the Humane Society. She was open to talking about that. So just like we have board appointments on Cheehaw, River Court, all the other things that we use money, I think it might be advantageous for us to have a little bit of influence on that board since they are a key partner with that. So that would be my only, I guess, comment at this point, is that I would like to maybe table this for 30 days to work it in with the dangerous dog conversation we're having.
Commissioner Langstaff?
No comment.
Commissioner Young?
No comments.
My concern is, how little I know about what happens at the Humane Society. It's my understanding now that only a fraction of the animals that were formerly euthanized are being put down, which is a positive thing. But on the other hand, I really can't see why the city is having to increase what we're paying if fewer animals are being euthanized. And I suspect that the city's payment to the Humane Society is a pretty big portion of their budget. I think I asked if we could get some more specific information about the Humane Society's finances. I don't know. I mentioned that to Chief Pursley, and I don't know if they make that available to the public or they'd be willing to release that. What's that, Chief?
Sir, we have Mr. Dent, their attorney. He can speak on that because he did get the request. Also, we have Ms. Kaufman online also to answer any questions.
Okay.
Mr. Dick?
Okay. And I mean, I just need to know how we can justify this addition. Obviously, the city, we don't need to be in a position where we're subsidizing the Humane Society. We need to pay them for the services they're providing. And, you know, that's my concern. And maybe I don't know enough, understand enough about it. It might be an outlier here. These two animals that have been there for 11 months, my suspicion is that if they're not redeemed by the owner, then that $10 a day is somewhat, maybe this figure that the city's paying is going to finance part of that expense. But did you want to speak, Mr. Dent?
Sure, Mr. Mayor. I had gotten some information together. If I did not send it to Mr. Davis, that is my fault. It was a slip up on my part. The reason for the increase is that euthanization is not just what our costs are about. But we haven't had an increase in 10 years and our costs have gone up. And we do get grant money. We get money from donors. There is ways to have the owners pay for the dogs like the ones that are in issue from the bite case that Commissioner Warrington was talking about. So it's not a function of housing dogs that can't be gotten rid of. It is a function of our operation costs have just gone up, labor costs have gone up, and it's been 10 years since our contract has gone up. And, you know, to be able to survive and have the staff that is needed to have an executive director, the increase is necessary. We saw an increase from the county as well, which was approved. So we're in need of an executive director, but when your budget just barely allows you to pay your hourly laborers, it's very difficult to market for and secure a quality executive director that would, you know, have the organization run smoothly and might certainly be helpful in addressing the issues that have come up recently, and be there for both Chief Persley and Mr. Capers. So that's the main reason for the increase. And the euthanasia is not the sole cost or the sole issue, and the numbers going down is not because we have more costs because we're housing more dogs for a longer time. That the numbers going down are due to our volunteers securing transports to other organizations that take dogs and find them good homes and avoid euthanasia.
Thank you, Mr. Dent. With that, has there been a second, Ms. Hicks, to Commissioner Warrington's motion to table? Is there a second to the motion to table?
Second. Mayor, I second it.
Okay. Now, is this to the second work session in August?
Yeah, so we wouldn't be prepared next week, but if we could wait till the second work session and talk about this with the dangerous dog ordinance, that would be great.
Any discussion, Mayor Pro Tem?
Is it the table?
Motion to table. Any discussion?
Oh, no discussion on the motion table, right?
I'm sorry. Okay. We're voting on the motion to table because there's no discussion on the motion to table. Can we have a roll call? Is that right, Mr. Davis?
That's my understanding, yes.
I knew that. I just wanted to see if you. Okay.
Yes. Ward 2.
Yes.
Ward 3.
Yes.
Ward 4.
Yes.
Ward 5.
Yeah.
Ward 6.
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes. And next, it appears we have COVID body anti-testing. Is a conditional item. Ms. Subadan, is this your item?
Actually, Chief Scott just jumped on, so I'll yield to the chief. Go ahead, Chief.
Thank you very much, and
good evening.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Commission, our City Manager. I'm honored to be before you this evening to request your consideration for this resolution for the acceptance and execution of the proposal from Augusta University Health to provide clinical antibody testing and to provide insight into the community spread of COVID-19. The Coronavirus Task Force Subcommittee recommends approval of the proposal for an estimated $162,000 that will be cost shared equally between the City of Albany, the Dougherty County School System, and Dougherty County government. Therefore, the estimated expenditure for your consideration, Mr. Mayor and Commission, is $54,000. Just to give an idea of the breakdown of that cost, $144,000 for tests and another $18,000 for travel and lodging and meals. I would be happy to answer any questions you may have. I of course, during our last meeting, I gave a pretty detailed background of the pros and cons of antibody testing, and I would be happy to share any additional information I can this evening. Of course, the task force subcommittee, of course, under your leadership, Mr. Mayor, and County Commission Chair Cohelis, that committee consists of City Manager Sharon Subadan, Mr. Michael McCoy, the County Administrator, myself, Mr. Kenneth Dyer, and also Mr. Steiner, the CEO of Phoebe Putney Health Systems. So with that, I will turn back to you, Mr. Mayor, for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions, Mayor Pro Tem?
Chief Scott.
Yes.
Looking at your bullet points where you say the test is for 1,800 is recommended with a minimum of 1,000 individuals for the study. So when Augusta University Health Facility come down and do these clinical antibody tests, how would they go about testing the 1,000 some individuals? Would those be one that would have been infected with the COVID-19 virus?
No, sir. We have not. Augusta University has not developed the census or the makeup of the test group. They will be working with their team to bring forward that information about the test group and those who will be, I guess, the demographic makeup of the study group. They've not put that information together yet, but they will be moving very quickly on that and putting that together to have for us to review. But that has not been done yet.
And just a follow-up question. For $54,000, just for 1,000 individuals, what if more individuals, would it be voluntary or to be tested, or since Albany has been zoned as another hotspot?
Yes, those numbers are simply tied to this proposal itself. There are, of course, a number of other concerns that have been laid out. I think the mayor asked about coming back and doing a 6-month review, for example, of this after the test. So There are, Augusta University has said that they would be happy to consider any additional recommendations or thoughts, such as coming back in 6 months or anything else we'd like to bring forward. But this is the proposal as it stands on today. They are open for other suggestions and thoughts, even involving what the mayor brought up as well about even coming back in 6 months.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Fuller?
No questions.
Commissioner Fletcher?
No questions. No
Commissioner
questions.
Yeah, Chief, are you aware of other cities in the state of Georgia that's doing the same thing? Maybe Columbus, Macon, any metro cities that you're aware of?
The first of the testing that I was made aware of was the city of Atlanta. I believe the city of Atlanta and I believe it was DeKalb County. Well, they were the first two that I believe public health engaged in, and I think that was the first that began the discussion. Now, Augusta University has since shared with us that they have been in conversations with the county next to Richmond, which I believe is Columbia County, and so that is another area. So that's three that I'm aware of that have been involved or will be involved in antibody testing in Georgia.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Langstaff?
Nothing from me.
Commissioner Young?
No questions.
If I could, if I may be incorrect, but I think in Atlanta and Decatur, that antibody testing, I think actually the CDC was doing it instead of Augusta University.
Mr. Mayor, it was public health. That was public health involved in that particular testing, and I do not believe Augusta University was involved in that first testing that we saw. Now, of course, there's two other things real quick. We know that antibody testing is going on in other settings as well. These are just governmental agencies that I wanted to mention. And Mr. Mayor, I wanted to follow up. You had a question of me last time that whether or not the Dougherty County school system had approved this. And what I determined from Mr. Dyer is that there would be that he was ready to go, and there would not be a vote from the Dougherty County school system. It's that he is prepared to move forward as soon as we are ready. So we will be certainly, if we're successful this evening, we will be moving forward very quickly.
Chief, I read this presentation, and of course, one thing I was sort of found interesting. There's a speculation of the summer burnout. That had been discussed, and apparently there's some thought that the number of deaths is declining because the virus is not as lethal at this time of the year. But the other thing, under blood draw, I just want to make sure that we understand what our obligation is. This is on third page of the presentation. It looks like the city and the county are going to have to identify the individuals and have them there to be tested. That's our responsibility. And I just want to make sure we understand that what we have to do before these folks come down here. Is that correct? Are we going to have to identify the individuals to be tested and schedule their appointments?
Mr. Mayor, we are, as I mentioned a moment ago, we have not received information on the
specifics
study group. No, sir, we have not.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure we understand what our obligations are, so that we don't have folks coming down from Augusta and then we don't have people being tested. We didn't. Yes, okay. But with that, is there a motion to approve the allocation of these funds? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Mayor Pro Tem.
Further discussion.
Commissioner Fuller.
No, sir.
Commissioner Fletcher.
No, sir.
Commissioner Worthington.
No discussion.
Commissioner Langstaff.
No discussion.
Commissioner Young.
No discussion.
Okay, can we call the roll?
Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes. Next item, Mr. Hicks.
The next item is conditional, and it's a resolution accepting an easement agreement from DM Development Company, LLC.
Off the ordinance, off the resolution act for its adoption.
Is there a second?
Second. Ward 4.
Pro Tem. Mr. Fuller.
No discussion.
Commissioner Lane. Commissioner Fletcher.
No discussion.
Commissioner Worthington.
No discussion.
Commissioner Langstaff.
No discussion.
Commissioner Young.
No discussion.
Okay, is Mr. Maples on the line?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Okay, just a brief discussion. I don't really like voting on these things if we didn't talk about this at the work session, did we?
No, sir.
Okay, I don't like this for future reference, but go ahead if you'd explain what we're talking about.
This is an issue associated with MD Development, which is developing the property called the Scene at Sand Hill, which is the off-site ASU housing project that you see from Radium Springs Road near Whitney and Highland. This is the last, one of the last pieces of the puzzle. As you've seen, they're trying to get open before the school opens, that being Albany State University. This is an easement that takes drainage from a city street, Highland Avenue, through their property. It ties to some easements that were accepted by the city commission back in February that tie into the Albany State storm drainage pond that's near the stadium over there. So in order to expedite the process and make sure that we meet the deadline for this housing opening up in time for Albany State opening up, whatever they choose to do, we brought this before you for consideration as far as accepting a storm drainage easement from MD Development.
And why didn't this matter come before the commission earlier, Mr. Maples?
We were notified. We notified them 2 months ago, but there were some problems associated with them getting the pipe installed, I guess with COVID or whatever. We couldn't actually accept the storm drainage easement until the pipe was actually installed and finished and met our requirements for the installation of the storm drainage line. So that brings on the issue as to why it's so late getting to you.
Okay, and the contractor's doing all the work?
Yes, sir.
No expense to the city?
That's correct.
Okay. Could we call the roll for vote?
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes.
And
The next item, Mr. Hicks.
The next item is conditional also, and it's a resolution accepting the CARES Act funding award from the state of Georgia, authorizing the mayor to execute the grant agreement between the city and the state of Georgia.
Okay, I sent a letter out this weekend. I hope everybody got it with the proposed agreement. It's Mr. Davis, I think, is willing to prepared maybe to answer any questions, but basically, as I explained in the letter, we would be allowed to pull down the 30% of the funding from the CARES Act. It's a little north of $1 million. There's also some things, I'm not familiar with the specifics, but you got a pretty narrow window in there. Ms. Subadan can explain it to us when you can spend this money. And again, I just want to reiterate that what has been approved is to compensate local governments for unbudgeted expenses associated with the pandemic. The present, the stimulus, next round of stimulus being negotiated, there's a proposal requesting funding for loss of revenue, which is a much different thing, obviously. But if anybody has any questions, they could ask me, or if it's a legal question, ask the mayor, the city attorney, or questions for Ms. Subadan, obviously, we can ask. Mayor Pro Tem?
The only thing I would say is just go for it.
Commissioner Fuller? Commissioner Fletcher?
No questions.
Commissioner Warburton?
Nothing.
Commissioner Langstaff?
No question.
Commissioner Young?
No questions.
With that, could we call the roll for vote? Ms. Hicks?
Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Mayor? Yes. And it looks like the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda.
Move the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Commissioner Fletcher, seconds. Does any commissioner wish to have any of these items removed from the consent agenda? If not, and if there's no discussion, we'll proceed to take a vote on the consent agenda.
Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes. Any items for the next agenda?
Mayor, I have one.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Mayor, and to the Board of Commissioners, I think sometime today that the governor withdrew his lawsuit against the city of Atlanta and the mayor of Atlanta and the Board of Commissioners. I was wondering the lawsuit that they have in there that where, since his lawsuit was withdrawn, can cities enforce now a mask out in the public?
Yeah, I don't see a problem with it if y'all want to pass it. I guess the governor's caved in.
And Mr. Mayor, and the reason why I'm bringing it up because we still having a lot of these large events of house parties, club, things of that nature. And you start to get a little frightened when individuals that are participating in these large events, and they come back home and the school will be starting within the next month or so. So we need to do something to protect not only the senior citizen, but, you know, the citizen of this community also. So I think if we can mirror or something like Atlanta have done, I think it'll be in the best interest because as the World Health Organization and 250 some doctors, medical experts saying that this virus is going to make a second wave, and Dr. Fauci, the infection control, said this virus probably will kill as many more than it's already killed, as 150 some thousand today. So we certainly need to do something to educate and inform our citizens this virus is for real.
So would you like to have a agenda item having an ordinance requiring the wearing of masks?
I think that would be the best. That would be a step in the right direction.
Okay. Is that all? Commissioner Fuller?
Nothing at this time.
Commissioner Fletcher?
No discussion.
Commissioner Warburton?
Yeah, nothing else.
Commissioner Langstaff?
Nothing else.
Commissioner Young?
Nothing at this time.
I have a couple items. First, I wanted to follow up on the possibility of building some accommodations for the gentlemen that, well, the people who work at the recycling center. It's just the heat's insufferable at this time of year, and we need to make some decent accommodations. They don't have restrooms out there. It's just something that should have been addressed a long time ago. But secondly, it's my understanding that now we've determined that both Bill Miller and Henderson are in the floodplain. And before we spend any more money, I would like to consider the option of possibly building new facilities. I mean, the fact of the matter is, one of these facilities was built in the late 80s and one's built in the mid 90s. And we need to look and see what it would cost. Looking back at the Recreation Master Plan from 2006, our biggest need in the city of Albany, identified in 2006, was exercise facilities for senior citizens. And we all know that if these facilities were modified to accommodate after-school programs, how much more we could do for our citizens. And before we spend over $100,000 building a retaining wall and the cost of building the extension, I don't want any more money spent until we have some idea of what it would cost to build new facilities. And I mean, quite frankly, I'm concerned that we're going to see decisions made, and it's going to be fait accompli when it's presented to this board. So that is my. I don't know if I can make a directive, but if I can make a directive, it is a directive. But otherwise, it is a strong request. With that, any further comments?
May I respond to that?
Yes, ma'am.
So we are planning at the next work session to do some, we would not proceed.
Your audio is still.
In any case, we're planning to bring options to you at the next work session on the things.
Well, I mean, what I'm saying, Ms. Superintendent, we need to have an idea of what it would cost to build a similar facility, and where we have some property, or if we can build the facilities on those same properties just at a higher elevation. I'd like to know that, but thank you, ma'am. And with that, anybody have any further questions?
Hold on, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we had a lot of issues on the agenda tonight that citizens wanted to speak to. I know in the past we have, of course, had the speakers forms, but we also allow people to just sign up with the meetings, and we still haven't, kind of figured out how to allow a regular person to comment on something before a vote, which is which has been the process so far. So I'm getting a lot of messages from social media saying that people wanted to speak, to the dog issue and as well as the saggy pants issue that did not get a chance to speak. Just regular citizens who wanted to make comment.
Okay, Mr. Hicks, did anybody apply to any speaker appearance forms submitted to the city clerk's office?
No, sir.
Okay, well then I would just suggest if we could get a notice on the public access channel to inform people of how they would go through the process of getting on the agenda, if we could do that while we're having the virtual meetings.
Yeah, and let me make it clear now. The thing is that we have a speaker's form that they sign up with, but we also had a list that people would sign in the back of the chamber to come up and speak right before we were going to vote, and that's the part that's missing.
Well, obviously we can't do that if we have a virtual meeting. So, I mean, what I'm saying is
there are ways to do it. I'm just saying it hasn't been done yet. If we didn't do nothing but stick another phone out in the lobby, or what have you, we just haven't done that yet, or that process hasn't been figured out.
Yes, Mr. Hicks.
Speaker's comment form has been added online as well.
Okay,
so
it's already there.
Needs to fill it out. Yes, sir.
Okay, and it's correct that nobody submitted a speaker appearance form for tonight's meeting.
Correct. That's the speaker comment form. Nobody submitted one.
But Mr. Hicks, is that supposed to be done real time?
No, sir. It has on that it has to be submitted 24 hours in advance of the meeting.
Okay, so what I'm saying is there is no real time way for somebody to make comment. When we had our meetings before, real time, you could go to the back of the room. If you just showed up there today and didn't know if the what was on the agenda, you could come and sign up in the back of the room. Yes, sir, Mayor. There was a form in the back of the room that you could sign up and come to speak for the commission right before a vote. I don't know why. I know that's the process. I've done that several times.
Well, I think that's just for a public hearing, but yeah, I think that's just for a public hearing. But
may I speak? So I think, other on the commission, correct me if I'm wrong, we went to our new format to where we have the 2 work sessions that leads up to the vote. That was to encourage comments during the work sessions, as well as if someone, based on our conversations during a work session, then they would have notice to submit the form. So I think the process, Commissioner Young, I think you're right. That was the way we were doing it. But during COVID and changes and online, we've kind of changed the whole way that we're introducing items to the community. Because before, if you remember, it was a work session followed by the meeting that night. And it was a way to get input because it was such a tight time frame of work session straight to meeting. Now we're doing work session, meetings follow a week, maybe 3 weeks later. So you're right, though. We've got to figure out with the COVID, with online, how can we solicit and get more? Because I've had senior citizens, and I'm not stereotyping senior citizens, but they indicated that they didn't have access of Zoom or what have you, and they felt like they couldn't comment because of that reason. So we do need to figure out a way to, whether you have access to internet or Zoom or know how to use Zoom, you should be able to get your comments heard one way or the other. So, but I just want to interject that things are a little different now, meeting with 2 work sessions and then a meeting.
Yeah, yes, sir. I do understand that, and I understand what we're working under right now. But whatever citizens' comments or citizen input that we need, I want to make sure that we do everything possible to ensure that they can comment. You know, whether or not we give them a call-in number that had been discussed before, or what have you. That doesn't need to just kind of go away because, you know, we haven't done our due diligence to find a way to do it.
Okay. Was that all, Commissioner Young?
Yes, sir.
Okay. There being no further business, we stand adjourned.